60 Seconds is a game about preparing for the atomic apocalypse as quickly as possible and then waiting for rescue in a bunker using materials that you hastily scavenge from your home before entering the bunker. There are a plethora of objects that you can grab, but the two that matter the most are cans of soup and water. The other objects seem to amount to little more than junk that is just simply cluttering up your inventory. There is the occasional exception, such as a radio, but for the most part, objects you pick up in the environment are little more than if checks for decisions you'll need to make later in the survival portion of the game. An example is if a trader comes to your shelter and wants a gas mask, you will have to trade some bullets or perhaps an axe for it. When you first start 60 Seconds, you'll notice a fairly obvious lack of production value or polish. Poor screen transitions, shoddy controller support, and poorly executed interface design all contribute to an experience that feels like it was made in a week rather than months. That's not to say that 60 Seconds is all bad though. The art style is serviceable, and there is a fair bit of personality exuded via the journal entries, and the writing isn't terrible. The setting and premise of the game are perfect starting points to make a very entertaining and engaging game. The problem is that 60 Seconds never seems to deliver anything interesting or fun. The gathering phase of the game is by far the most entertaining portion of the game, and that's really not saying much. Now, the survival portion of the game amounts to little more than a long and slow decline to death for your characters, all while only interacting with the game via binary journal entries. And even those entries are extremely limited and only presented to you when the game wants you to have them. You don't have the opportunity to listen to the radio every day, you could just do so when the game actually lets you. You don't get to go explore the surrounding area of the waste unless the game happens to think it's a good idea on that particular day. Even then, all of your, quote, choices are limited to yes or no answers that have no clear indication of what the outcome of the decision will be. These are not the difficult decisions that the game claims it features, and they are more of a coin flip than anything. You're able to send one of your bunker dwellers into the wasteland, again only using the journal for interaction, for supplies, but it takes a very long time for them to return, and often they come back with less supplies than it takes to get them healthy, let alone provide enough food for the entire family. While we're on the topic of the family, perhaps there's some kind of hidden benefit to having more people in your bunker, but on the surface level it seems like an optimal thing to do would be to simply save yourself and leave your family to fend for themselves. With no clear benefit to having them around, they're simply just a drain on resources. 60 Seconds shows a lot of promise, but it just falls flat in every possible way. Once the 60 seconds are up, the player agency seems to go out the window and turns into one of those cheesy pick-your-own-adventure novellas from the 90s than an actual game. The tutorial is a bore, the controls are clunky, the polish is lacking, and the overall game is hardly worth the 60 seconds it takes to play its most entertaining part, let alone the $10 it will cost you on Steam. Now, I honestly hope this game does very well enough to warrant a sequel. While I disliked this game, I still think the idea shows promise and would love to see it explored with more, well, let's say effort. If you really want a great game that seems to capture dystopian survival well, you'd do much better to give This War of Mine a try. 60 Seconds, though, is hardly worth your time.